Tried watching a video of yours, another live was the voiceover froze, but here I am. Yeah, it happens, man. You just the divine timing is a very beautiful thing, dude. Because you end up in the right place at the right time, and some of us may think it's wrong, but it's actually not. We're just freaking out about it because it's our matter of opinion. We're not trusting our gut instinct, or our intuition, or natural knowing, learning how to go with the rhythm and the flow. Well, yeah. It's going to intensify over the weekend here and there, and don't be surprised if you get a little kicker here, because, everybody talks about shifting, but today I think we're going to be talking about more about rebirth and what that actually signifies in people's, what's happening now with the spring and how we are observing how nature actually works now. You know what I'm saying? For those of you, hello, Tanya, for those of you who observe, spend time in nature or observe the natural elements and how things are a little bit different now that you are more clear, things that you may not have observed before. Like, for example, I noticed that spring, I didn't pay attention to spring and the growth that is associated with the days that are associated with spring in the beginning of spring, right? And it was an opportunity for me to observe Earth's natural timing in a way where it reminded me of the growth, the death, the rebirth, that situation that is all going on here. And, I say it all the time that we're no different from plants. And this is just another way, instead of knowing it, that I had the ability to experience and observe it actually happen in front of my face. For 3 days consecutive with the spring, I'm looking at, these things growing out of the ground, beautiful green leaves. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, there's these buds that are growing out of it. And now they're starting to flower, and, all in a matter of days, right? And that moment that I connected with what I was observing, and I was like, wow, man, that, that resonates with, what's going on in the collective right now, right? A lot of us are kind of like, we're in that pish posh of learning how to turn away from the shit that doesn't necessarily fucking serve us, but in a different way now. Now we're starting to see worldly events are the cost effect of someone's actions, right? You know what I'm saying? And it can be a little distracting, is what Spirit is saying here. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people are preoccupied. We don't know what's happening. There was a recent release of a video and it went viral, and a lot of people might be panicking, but I know that for those of us who are actually focused on the divine, the light within, our family, our community, whatever it is that we're really focused on, we're not affected by those things in a way where it's detrimental, where we have to literally navigate fear consistently. It's not like nobody's dropped some bombs outside. It would be inhumane, right? But, all these threats and all this fear and all this debacle is actually creating chaos in the collective energy right now. And if you're in divine flow or rhythm, you're feeling that one way or another. Things are kind of pish posh, a little bit yin yang, maybe a little fiery, maybe a little honory, maybe a little emotional. You know what I'm saying? It's like, basically what they're doing is they're showing me a spinning wheel, and you can pick an emotion and have access to that emotion if you wanted to, by thinking about something or remembering something that may come up because you feel a certain type of way, going on with this energy, right? So when we realize that, we become even more of the observer and realize, hey, wait a minute, hold on a second. I have the sight. I am seeing things for what they are, and I'm observing all these things that are happening around me, and I realize that life is changing. We are shifting. We are changing. We are evolving, right? We're becoming more connected within ourselves somehow, and this is what the astrology, this is what everything is about. This is what people just become, and there's levels to this shit. And you can go cycle after cycle, season after season, without even recollecting on these things or realizing these things. But here we are having the beauty of observance right now that is actually showing us the divine within and how it creates without, because we're all connected to it. And this is what we're starting to really kind of like pique our interests into, because we realize that the most profound changes are from the work that we do within and not necessarily without, because that's how we react and that's how we respond to the situation. So being of your intelligence or your intuition or the higher intelligence, you automatically shift and act in a different way than what most people would do. When This kind of reminds me of the pivot that we announced a couple of days, where a lot of people will go left and you'll go right, you know, and it might not look like what it's supposed to look like, and make you feel uncomfortable in one way or another, but that's not meant to be that way. That's not meant to, it's meant to rattle your cage enough to know that you have the confidence to literally go where you haven't gone before, in a sense, when it comes to this pivotal space that a lot of us are making these decisions in our lives and things are changing, whether it's people, places, things, you're moving, thinking about moving, thinking about making a profound purchase or making a difference in your life, something just different, and I think lately a lot of people have been talking about, I think I heard my wife talking about, it's like, hey man, just brush your teeth with a different hand today, just do something different and watch how the universe responds to that by doing something different. Just kind of like pay attention to what happens during that day and see what else that you do different that perpetuates motivation and possibly even a passion to do something else or do something more. And this is how creativity works, right? And if we focus on these things, we're not necessarily baffled by what's going on around us, even though that people are affected around us. We're actually being told to focus in a different place. And we're honoring that very, very kind of like calling or cognition of, when you cognize these things, you automatically shift or you change into, or you cohere and embody whatever it is that is literally pulling to you, right? And this is how the mind works. This is how we follow leads. That's how we allow ourselves to be guided, and that's how we guide, right? So, yeah, I still feel like a lot of people are, kind of like, again, what they told me earlier about this wishy-washy shit. You know what I'm saying? You could be all up in your emotions, or you could realize that your emotions are all up in themselves and you're the one participating mentally with it, right? And if you put all that kind of, if you utilize logic and you put all that aside for a minute, you realize the emotions have a very profound effect on your breath, your heartbeat, the sensations inside of your body, tension. You know what I'm saying? And these are all some things that we've observed because we've already had, we've been in distress in one way or another. I think it's more so a time that Spirit is kind of like pointing to the fact that look at the pressure or the unnecessary pressure that we place upon ourselves by thinking, right? Or having a thought or an intention or a notion or thinking about the past. And then remember that energetic pressure is something that you're actually pulling in, you're bringing into you. But the resistance and the feeling of the resistance is also associated with what's going on when you have that moment, when you have that thought, right? So when you master that, or you understand that your emotions don't run your life, don't rule your life, you start using them in a more positive way, and you start alchemizing them to a more positive aspect or more, a more desirable outcome. When these things come up, and especially with Venus and Chiron right now, the wounds are coming up. You know what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to Chiron, and then it's backed by Venus. And some people might be even passive aggressive at some point today, and you might pick up on that, not realizing that, it's just the wounds are coming up, but also the softness and the compassion is coming out, or the innocence of a child. So, if you're noticing that within your kids or somebody around you, you know what I'm saying? We might need a little bit of reassurance today that everything's all right, because we're on shaky ground right now and we don't necessarily realize what's going on, right? But for those of you who are in tune or listening to this message, you will be informed, is what Spirit just said, So it's good to know that Spirit has your back, and that if you're going through something, not only do we have our services available to help you navigate these places or spaces in any which way that's necessary. These things, these readings and these messages that we do on a daily allow you to navigate things that might be a little confusing, or where the next step is, or, should I take that job, or should I start this career, or should I follow, you know what I'm saying? Like literally we encourage everybody to follow their passion over here, but we have to do that in practical steps. And some of us might want to just literally enact something into existence, not realizing that we're going to be knocking our heads over the shit that we intended or we manifested, when there's a kind of like a more balanced approach to what we're doing or what we're intending to do. And if that's making sense with you, put it in the comments. You know what I'm saying? Because I think it's important that you acknowledge the fact that this information is something that you resonate with, to show the universe also that it resonates with you, to help you on your journey in any way that it can, So I think it's really important for people to kind of like understand a little bit of what divine grace actually is by compassionately or passionately acknowledging these things, because they realize that you're acknowledging the gift from the universe that is giving you this message, that is telling you that everything is free and clear in this aspect or whatever it is that you're going through, and you can move on to what it is that you want to do more of, right? But again, it takes a little bit of time to understand that these things are happening simultaneously in your thought processes as you observe these things, right? And, even though that we can mechanically break it down for you and show you the process and the steps, this is all happening in a moment, fam. You know what I'm saying? And when we pay more attention to the moment feeds us its grace and its savory taste is what Spirit is saying. So, with that being said, we're going to keep on going with the cards now, and kind of like understand that your anxiety can be easily confused by excitement. Your soul could be in joy, but you could be in fear because the mind doesn't understand the pureness of joy, or its existence for that matter, of what that actually is when it's divinely led, is what I'm also hearing. So, if you're having problems today, or you feel like you're overly sensitive, or you just need to balance and ground yourself, but that could come in many different ways. My recommendation is going to do something different. Go to do something positive. Go to do something that you normally would do. You know what I'm saying? But have fun doing it, knowing the fact that you're taking this nervous energy or this shaky ground that you feel like you're on, and you're alchemizing it into a more stable, practical environment for you to be clear. And this is self-love, fam. You know what I'm saying? This is how this shit works, that we don't even realize that self-love is something that's free. You know what I'm saying? And the beauty of our energy is the currency. And the more we nurture and honor that, the more the universe shows you the respect that you're showing yourself. Self-love. Big thing. So... Yep, dude. That's the power of promise, though, sister, when you see things like that. You know what I'm saying? When you feel things like that, when you experience these things, that is the gift of promise that the divine gives to everybody. And all you need is to give yourself permission, right? But not a lot of people, they're kind of like in that in-between where they're on the fence on whether, bro, is this really worth my time, is what I almost hear. You know what I'm saying? Yes, it absolutely is, because investing in yourself is something that a lot of people don't know how to do. Anybody can read a book and anybody can practice what somebody else has practiced. Can you do it for yourself and allow yourself to be loved and guided by the divine on this journey? Can you trust them enough, or trust yourself enough to allow yourself to be led to the promised land, to where you're supposed to be, where you would like to be, what you desire to have? You know what I'm saying? This isn't fucking, this isn't the promise of a lottery and an overnight fucking, wake up success, people. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about the practical, more stable aspects of understanding that when we want something, sometimes we have to find out why is it that we want it so bad before we actually get it. And some of us get it to find out why it was actually so bad when we intended to get it. And having a more balanced perspective of how those outcomes actually work in our lives is a profound game changer. Okay, and I know somebody resonates with this message, and I know that they understand what I'm talking about, because it's like there's a fact that literally came up in the moment that lit you up inside that said, yeah, that, I seen that. You know what I'm saying? And you might not know, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people don't even realize that these things are happening in real time, and if you slow down things long enough, like we just did, to kind of like take you on a journey, divine intuition is real, and here it is. And this confirms this because it did something to you inside, right? This isn't a mind game, and we're not playing with people here. This is divine intervention, you see. This is the real, the things that in this reality that no one else can see. But your gifts are also your promise to that reality and the understanding and confirmation of stuff that these things are real. And that we are also on some type of metaphysical path, a metaphysical understanding of ourselves, divinely led, of course. But we have to choose that, and we have to continue to choose until the commitment grows to where it's a constant, right? Because a lot of us don't, when it comes to the divine and actually committing yourself to who you are, it's one and the same thing, because you are divine, right? But a lot of us realize along the way how disconnected we have become, or how numb we've become to certain aspects of ourselves that are actually real and deep and true, right? And authentic, to be on the forefront of who you are, right? So given the emotional value of the day and this weekend, is what they're saying is like, slow down. Don't allow yourself to overreact or over respond to situations because you have all the time in the world, bro. Don't think that time is a ruler or a controller of your life. You get there when you're meant to get there. Don't rush, because when you rush, you're not focusing on the things that are really important, which one of them is yourself. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a really important part. And it's no surprise that power comes up and the bear comes up, because it's almost like, for those of you who understand the bear or embrace the bear spirit, the temperament of the bear is very kind of like goes through its own deductive process. It is not acting out of rashness or anything. It's actually out of skill, intuition, or its primal aspects, which in this case is not a primal aspect, is what spirit is saying. This is a messenger. This is the spirit being. This is the spirit bear that is literally, excuse me. Spirit likes to change the light and the right, and I apologize. I will get back to this message. Every time we say something or it confirms, see, it did it again. You know what I'm saying? So we have this going on in the background. So it's not the filter that's doing that. We just want you to know that spirit is also confirming things that are going on that we're speaking of right now. So, just want you guys to understand how the magic works. Another day, again, the confirmations are real and they're everywhere. You know what I'm saying? 111, 222. That's just the beginning. There's a lot more that you can use that the universe will confirm to you. So, with that being said, the messenger of the day is the bear. Let's mind our temperament, because we are very powerful, right? And when we misuse that power, we have a tendency to break shit or make things worse than what they actually are. So before you go, you know what I'm saying, throwing your weight around, like it means something because you got to prove something, think twice and ask yourself, is this going to cost you something? Is it kind? Is it clear? Or am I overreacting or over responding to something? So I believe that's kind of like what the bear message represents today. But remember, you're not a punk. All right, and you're not what we like to call a pendejo. It's like you don't have to be afraid. Y'all have that fire energy going on right now, especially with Aries, that allows you to show yourself how much confidence and how much courage you actually have. Through the battles that have already been won. Believe it or not, this new moon was nothing but profound, and here we are headed for another one that's going to show you who you are again. On a different level, in a different way, and that's what these cards represent here, fam. So just to clarify one more thing, because I just started grabbing the cards on kind of like the emotional energy that a lot of people might be unstable or unsure about right now. When you're not left out in the cold, and if you're feeling the cold inside of your chest, then maybe that's something that requires warmth, it requires love, it requires affection or attention. Because if people are walking around with cold hearts, then, their access to the divine, or what they believe is being divinely led, is extremely distorted and diluted and can be led astray rather rapidly. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of spirit's way of saying, hey, check yourself, dude, because not all these divine messages are true or they're real, and because they're not divinely led, right? Because the divinely led is something that you can feel, is what spirit is saying. So don't be misled in that space. For those of you who are extremely trusting of your spirit team, you know what I'm saying? Just be mindful of the messages that also come in subliminally from other things around you. For those of you who are aware of those things, hearing a lot of voices, probably things in your dreams, be mindful of those things. Remember, you're a courageous being and nothing should be fucking with you. You know what I'm saying? And also the opposite is true. Don't be fucking with anybody, because, dreams are real, and sometimes we end up in somebody else's unnecessarily. And I don't know who needed to hear that, but apparently that's something, because dream traveling is a real thing, and we don't necessarily know what we're doing. So, if you want to get a hold on that, or learn how to balance and stabilize these things so that way they don't terrorize you, please reach out to us and we will help you understand that there's a profound discipline and there's rules to these things. There's divine law, which a lot of people don't know, and we are also learning. There's just things that you're not supposed to do while you're doing things. And, this is the beauty of discovery of those things, and we will be happy to share those things or educate you in any way that we can. The link is in the bio if you want to get to the website. So, I feel for a lot of people that, kind of like thinking about the future or some type of despair, some type of disappointment is something that a lot of people, are over with now. We've overcome these things. We're not as dramatic as we used to be. I think a lot of people need to, I think that's why they said be more courageous and more confident. of the illusions that set you free, you know. And they're saying that because in this reality, or this new energy, is what they're also talking about, you can see things a lot more clear than what you think you do, you know. And that's the promise of how you show you these things, is what Spirit just said. You know, when you tune into the higher divine, or you intend to meditate or tune into your higher self, or whichever prayer or mantra that you follow, there's actually a backing up to that you can sense. Okay, you're not just doing this shit in vain, you know what I'm saying? We might have to push through our own bullshit when we concentrate this hard on something that we're really focused on, but also at the same time, that's the amount of commitment and the amount of respect that I'm showing to myself as a reflection of the universe itself, right? So you understand that these things have to match you because you wholeheartedly intend these things to make things happen. And you're also okay with not having a reservation or an expectation of what that looks like. You're just confident that you're on the right path because your guidance is actually educating you. You're being educated in it. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I bid you adieu is what Spirit is saying. If you guys would like a reading, these are in-depth readings. It's always about the now and what you need, what you want, maybe a question or two that you may have. The link is in the bio.